Hello, I'm Jacqui Arnold, National Demonstrator. Welcome to my demonstration for NAFAS AGM. Autumn, according to John Keats, is the season of mists and mellow fruitfulness. But for me, autumn is also the most beautiful time of the year, and we have a fabulous one this year, didn't we? It's also a time of reflection and a time perhaps with different activities, and one of them, for me, is haymaking. And today my container is reflecting haymaking, and I've used, as you can see, a bale of hay. So as demonstrators, we do have a responsibility for an eco-friendly arrangements, and for that purpose I have used the biodegradable foam, which I think we've probably all tried and experimented with. I've put it into a tray, and I've actually taken an area out of my bale of hay to fit the tray into. And then I put string round to keep it all in place. I'm first of all going to add these rather interesting structures, and this one is actually a plastic cone, the sort that you get funereal ones, if you know what I mean. And I've covered it with some hay just to so that it actually blends in with my design. I've used also some paper covered wire just to bind round and keep it all together in place. So I'm going to place this one into the design first of all, and then I have two more. So just going to pop them quite centrally, that one, and then this one will go the other end. With the naturalness of the hay, I thought it would be nice to have a natural flower. And I'm going to use, to start with, some solidago, or most commonly called goldenrod. I'm going to pop that first of all between the actual structures. The light and fluffy flowers, so it really does look rather pretty. So my next flower that I'm going to use is some gladioli, which gives me some good height into my design. And also it works really well with the linear structures that I've already got in there. I'm going to keep this one a little shorter, which will then bring the colour right the way down through the design. Then I'm going to add, again, something very natural, and it's pennisetum. And if you look, it has a wonderful, fluffy, soft texture to it, which works really quite well with as an opposite contrast to the rough texture of the hay. And I do wish we had something where you could smell this fabulous meadow grass, which is what the hay is made from. You'll be interested to know that I actually went to the local pet shop to get my bale of hay. It works really well. They sell them in there, and I was delighted to see it, because I was wondering where I was going to actually get hold of one from for you to show you this design today. And taking those again, continuing that strong line through the design. Go. And then what do I think of when I think of autumn? Well, one of the flowers I always associate is perhaps the helianthus, or the beautiful sunflower. And I hope you can see that. They're just superb. They're really sitting proud now, aren't they? They're just open and full and really lend themselves. So I'm going to actually place those into my little cones on the top. So we're going to have them going right the way, continuing that colour right the way up through the design. And I haven't got them all front facing, I have turned them slightly, different angles, which hopefully makes that, continues that natural feel, and would be how they grow. I'm going to add some lower down in the design. I'm going to actually take this one towards the back, so you create the depth which you need. taking the eye right the way through. And I'm adding one or two lower, very low down, some really short ones here. And just one more, keeping it really quite short again, but bringing it slightly forward. Let's just turn that round now to show you. So now I've just got to add a little foliage, and for that I've chosen to use some of the spotted laurel or Acuba japonica, and I've given it a little shine because I think that contrast of the rough texture of the hay will contrast so well with this wonderful shiny texture of the leaf. Most of the Acuba japonica are in, apart from this last piece, which is a more spotted variety of laurel. And then I'm going to add a couple of shorter goldeny coloured gladioli, taking the colour right out to the edges of the design. And finally, my last sunflower, which I'm placing fairly centrally, but again turning it slightly so that it isn't face on. Next design is inspired by this beautifully textural piece of cork oak bark. I was inspired to use this because I happen to have some in my little workshop, and really I was introduced to it when we were on a holiday in Portugal, and we were taken on a little safari trip around all these fabulous trees, and ever since then I've just loved it. It's hydrophobic, which means actually that it's difficult to wet. So actually it's really good to use in our situation when we want to include some flowers. My first piece of plant material I'm going to use is from my garden, and it's this beautiful Physocarpus diablo, gorgeous dark burgundy colour with this wonderful burgundy stem. So we're going to have a little bit of strength with adding 2 more pieces to the design, or 1 more piece I should say. So we've got 2 pieces in there to the design to create the height immediately. And then the next piece of plant material I'm going to use is some acer. And this acer was in the garden when we bought our house. It's a small variety leaf, really beautiful, but I unfortunately don't have its name. So I have never really discovered which variety it is. But it is a really pretty, dainty little one, and it has this gorgeous red stem, so perfect with the colorations that I've chosen for this design. Get a little bit of foliage going through and out the other side, so let's just turn that around now for you to see. So my next piece of foliage to use is one of my true favourites. I think us flower angels all love it. It's Rubus tricolor, and it has this beautiful furry stem, which on its own with the leaves stripped off is very useful to use. This wonderful shiny leaf and a glaucous coloured one the other side. It's actually part of the blackberry family, the Rubus, but you do need to be careful when you plant it in your garden because it can be invasive, and although I don't mind it being invasive in my garden, but some people might prefer to have less of it, so just be careful when you do actually pop it in. It grows laterally, as I say, and it will spread very easily. So let's just turn that round, and then we'll add our next plant material. And for the next piece, I've got, in a pot outside in my patio, I've got this Nandina. Again, it has a really fabulous red stem, and the leaf turns red this time of the year, so it's very useful. It also rustles and makes a wonderful, wonderful noise. Put these few pieces in, coming through. Well, I love a sort of tapestry design, and I'm going to hopefully create something that resembles a sort of tapestry for you today. Another little piece of the rubus going in now. At the trailing part of the design at the front. Now, the flower that I've chosen for some height is the flower from the Regertia, which I've cut. It's the only one I've got in my garden, so you're very lucky today to see it because I've been saving it up for my demonstration. It has this fabulous red coloration on it, and it really is pretty, and it's quite strong, a strong stem. So again, I'm going to put that in. And really to balance that strength of that strong stem, I'm going to add some hydrangea, little hydrangea again from my garden this time. These are really great to use if you want to, this time of the year, you can actually preserve them quite easily by just cutting the stem and leaving them in a little drop of water and do not add any more, just let them dry naturally. So again, another favourite of mine this time of the year particularly is the physalis, and Chinese lanterns commonly called, but they're just beautiful, aren't they? They remind me of little pumpkins, which of course is the next thing that we're all going to be celebrating, isn't it, in the end of this month, so not long now. They start off really quite green, and then they turn to that beautiful deep orange colour. So just taking that through to give that fabulous orange, introducing that lovely colour in to the design. Some added strength, I'm going to add some Virginia cordifolia. Really a strong, sometimes they're called elephant's ears, but a really strong leaf. And then some wonderful amaranthus, or the trailing amaranthus this one is. Again, commercially bought, but I have grown it myself. It's very, very easy to grow. In fact, quite often you see just the odd stem popping up in the garden from perhaps some water that you've thrown over some flowers or something, and they just suddenly appear. So it's quite something. But these ones, as I say, I did actually buy, that they are just fabulous. And again, a good contrast in our textural selection that we're having here. Let's turn that round for you. Well, while it's round that way, I'm going to put in a pittosporum now. And this one is Pittosporum tenuifolium, and it's just gorgeous. It's a chocolate colour one. Again, it's in the garden. Had it for quite some time, but it's not growing. It hasn't grown very quickly. So again, it's one that is very precious to use because of the slow growth it seems to have. And of course, in our tapestry, we're going to have some berries. And the berries I've chosen for you today are from the beautiful viburnum, which we have in the garden. I hope you can see them. They're just such a gorgeous colour. And really they're still berries, so they're just such a pretty, pretty, pretty colour this time of the year. We're going to have them hanging like jewels from the design. Hanging down, almost like grapes actually. They're so pretty, they really almost resemble grapes, I think. So we're now feeling quite autumnal with this design because of the colours that we've got in there. So I'm just going to turn that round for you. And then I'm going to bring in a little more colour, and for that I've chosen a rose, and again one of my favourites. It's a rose called High and Magic, and it's one of the Ecuadorian roses which we get locally from our wholesaler. Just such a fabulous colour with the really almost orange but yellow, a combination of orange and yellow flower centres. a little grouping of those to go through. And of course the next thing will be, apart from Halloween, will be firework night, won't it? That's what we'll be looking at after that. But I like to get one thing out of the way first, and that's obviously going to be Halloween. So I shall be looking at that and all the pumpkins, etc. which are already coming into the shops, have you noticed? So a little grouping there of the higher magic rose. But I think we really need a little stronger pink in there. And so I've got another rose, just 2 stems. It's a garden variety, and it's again another favourite of mine. And this one is called Country Blue. And it's going to support that colour of the hydrangea because that has a pink running through it as well. So it would just create a little stronger pink to this side. Let's turn that round for you now. Well, we're almost there, but I think it's about time we added a few blackberries. I've had great trouble keeping these because my husband is rather partial to blackberries, and he's almost tried to take them and eat them. So I've had a lot of fun trying to hold him back from them. But anyway, we've got a few here for you, so I'm pleased to say. They're very prickly, so I've actually mounted them on some sticks. But I absolutely love summer pudding. Don't know if anybody else does. But it's something I like to make. It's such an easy pudding to make. So again, when the blackberries come, we always make a summer pudding. And then a little seed head, because I think seed heads are just so important this time of the year to use, and really create another interesting form into our design. And for this one, I don't know if you can see what I'm using, but it's an innular seed head, and it has these fabulous furry sort of forms which are obviously round in shape, which of course reflect the round form of the rose. So I'm going to just add those in. I'm going to cut them into 2. And I think we've actually finished. So this is my next tapestry of autumnal flowers. When a hot summer blends into autumn, we call it an Indian summer. And this brings me to my next design, which was inspired by our trip to Wafa in India back in 2020, when more than 50 of us visited the Wafa show in Jaipur. So my friend Jean, at a recent workshop, had some wonderful eucalyptus bark, and she actually said, would I like some? So my container today is a very rusty metal picture frame which has been mounted on a stand, and I've covered it with beautiful pieces of eucalyptus bark to create a layered design, which of course was a layered design is what I did when I entered the competitions at Wafa. You will see that I've already put some pieces of bark onto my foam that I have here. I've actually raised it slightly, so I've got some different layers going on in the design. And at the bottom I've placed some pieces of the strelitzia leaf, dried strelitzia leaf, which is commercially bought, and it's red, which contrasts really well as a colour and works with the brown that I've got in the design. My first piece of plant material is some more of the strelitzia leaves, the dried strelitzia leaf, which has beautiful flow to it and dries naturally in these great shapes. I'm going to add a piece into the back of the design, which will create some height. And I've got a wire there which just is going to loop it in, and of course we have some wonderful enclosed space there into the arrangement. Let me just show you now how it's looking with the strelitzia in the design. So I'm going to turn it back, and then I'm going to add some more of my, I should say, beautiful physalis, or the Chinese lanterns, which blends beautifully with the red. It's a gorgeous, vibrant orange colour and works really well. And of course the different forms also work in the design. So you can see I'm building up the layers, creating contrast in forms and textures. I have an aspidestra leaf here which I've rolled, as you can see, and stapled to create some sculptural forms in the design. The aspidestra leaf has actually been air dried, just naturally hanging in my little workshop over a period of time, and it changes from the really quite rich greens to this rather matte finished, rough textured colour. I'm adding some phormium leaves now. This is a two colour one. This has got a beautiful similar colour to the bark, eucalyptus bark, and green. It gives a good contrast because it's shiny against the matte finish of the eucalyptus bark. I will just loop it and staple it. And although it almost disappears because of the colour, it still works quite nicely. When you see it close up, it's actually got quite a shine to it. And then the other side, I'm going to add this other one. And again, I've looped it and stapled it. Let's just turn that round now, just so that you can see those leaves in there. Now, positively, one of the favourite foliages I have in the garden is this grape, and it's Vitis cognitii. Has these wonderful tendrils, and of course the leaf itself, although it's green, it starts off green, in the autumn it turns these beautiful red colours, and you get this, I don't know if you can see that, but it's a really lovely red coloured leaf. And of course it works so well with this particular colourway that I've got. And then the other piece I shall add over the other side. We'll take a couple of the leaves off because it's rather heavy. But it's all about looking into this design and discovering all these wonderful goodies that you seem to get when you do flower arranging, all these interesting pieces of plant material and unusual forms as well, perhaps. My leaves just come slightly undone, so I'm going to restaple that. And I hope you can see those lovely colours coming through. Let's turn it round for you. My next piece of plant material is this wonderful cotinus that grows in the garden, or commonly called the smoke bush. This one is something that's been in the garden since we lived here, and it's actually called Royal Purple, this one. Again, it's a rather beautiful red, and it goes very red, although it starts off red when it's starting to grow. It actually turns redder this time of the year in the autumn. You'll see that I've actually placed some more of the cotinus into the back of the design, and it's going really right through now. So I'm going to turn that round now to show you how it's looking and building up all these layers. These beautiful gladioli, they're little miniature ones, and I don't know if you can see that, but it's two-tone and it's an orangey red. I'm going to get some of that in the linear form to extend my design slightly out. By putting two pieces in, it actually strengthens that line. My next flower is this beautiful celosia, the brain flower. I know it's commonly called brain flower, but it does remind you of the brain, doesn't it? And it's a fabulous velvety texture, which again contrasts really well with the matte textures of, say, the aspidestra leaves. Really takes hopefully going to take the eye right into the design. Let me just turn that round now to show you how it's developing. My next flower is a jiminy. This is a really bright red jiminy, which of course will go so well with the strelitzia. And by placing them between the pieces of celosia, it really draws the eye to the centre of the design. I have another rose for you. This one is called Orange Crush, and it's another one of the Ecuadorian varieties. Beautiful orangey colour, very vibrant. Let's put those in now. Taking off the leaves, which just complicate it all, so you don't really need the leaves in with the rose as well. And following really the lines, the linear forms of the eucalyptus, I'm just taking these right the way across to this side of the design. My next flower is a very exotic one, and we're using an anthurium. This one is called Cognac, and even in the same box, they differ in colour. They blend the colour so well with the eucalyptus, just beautiful coloration there. There's a one that's very much a different colour, and I'm going to add this side because it blends much better with the roses on the left-hand side. It's really a combination of the two colours. It's almost a sort of peachy pink, so it just blends in really well. I have a few more flowers just to add into the tubes that I've placed in between the eucalyptus. It just will take the eye up and the colour up into the design. When I turn it round, you'll see that I've added another piece of strelitzia at the back. It gives it a little more strength at the back. So a final look at my design, which has been inspired by my wonderful trip to Wafa in 2020, an Indian summer. My last design for you today is a design that's also eco-friendly and foam-free, and it's been inspired by a container that I saw by accident when I was shopping in my local garden centre. I found these, and I'm sure many of you have seen them. They're edging pieces and they're made of bamboo. And what I've done is I've actually sealed the bottom by putting some hot wax on, so that each individual piece becomes a water source. I thought it would be really good to bring in a little of where I come from, which of course is Kent. And Kent is famous for lots of things, but particularly for its hops. And you can see that I've just included some hops around the base of the container. I'm going to begin with getting some linear height into my design, and for that I'm using some fennel. As you can see, it's beautifully light and natural, which is really what we want for this design. Funnily enough, it's self-seeded every year in my garden, and this year is no exception. I have to say, I've got a piece that is just outside the kitchen window, and the bees this year have just thought it was wonderful because they have taken it over completely, and it's really quite interesting to see them all. And as soon as you get near it, of course, they come over and try and get you away. So I've had to wait till all the bees had gone when I picked this for you. Placing that in, so you can see straight away we're getting a bit of height into the design. It doesn't matter if it moves slightly. I think that all works with the actual arrangement I'm trying to achieve. And we'll put a few extra bits in shortly, but before that I'm going to carry on with this height, and for that I've got some Molicella, or bells of Ireland, and it's beautifully long, as you can see. It's really quite stunning, and also it has this natural bend in it, so I feel that works quite well with the container. So we're going to add those in. Quite interesting. Sometimes you put the stem in and it doesn't quite work, so you need to try another one. There we go. So I'm going to turn it round, but actually it's all the way similar all the way round, as you can see. So it's a continuation of this wonderfulness coming up that looks hopefully quite natural. And continuing on with that, a little more of the gladioli, and I've chosen the lemony one again because it really seems to work so well with the limey green, but with the Molicella and the hops. So it's really then bringing that colour into the design too. And we don't need the thick leaves, we can take those off. And we will have some in the centre too. And the leaves also work quite nicely because they again give it that natural feel. It's just going to turn it round so that I can add some more this side. My next flower is the Nymphophia. This is a lemony colour one, and it has the most fabulous movement because it just seems to go its own way. We have got some in the garden, but they really haven't been very great this year. I think it's the lack of water hasn't helped, I'm sure, many plants. I'm sure we're all suffering, aren't we, for the lack of water that our poor plants haven't had this year. But a natural, and again it's a real contrast in texture to the perhaps shinier leaf of the gladioli. So it's quite an interesting one to use. My sunflowers are going to go in next, but of course what I've done this time is I've removed all the yellow petals so that you get that fabulous green and brown colour, which is a really good alternative to the bright vivid yellow of the sunflower. So these are going to be just popped in quite low into the design. Another natural flower which does grow in gardens is the marguerite, and this is a lemon one which is so pretty. Pretty little rose. Supermarket roses these are, which of course are a lot smaller but very much more in proportion to the size that I need for this design. My Vanda orchids, a little flower that I've brought for you today, a real favourite of mine, and it has this beautiful coloration with the lemon and then the brown, and of course it picks up beautifully the centres of the sunflower. And I've actually taken them and wired them individually so that I can just drop them into these little tubes of bamboo. I'm hoping that you can see the wonderful coloration in this foliage, which is jasmine. It's a two-tone one this time, and it's obviously the lemon colour is picked up beautifully, and it does have still some very just few, but we have a few white flowers on the tips. It has these fabulous arching stems, which I'm going to now finish off my design by adding them in. Jasmine, of course, is a real true favourite of brides for weddings at the moment, and luckily I have a fabulous plain one as well at the front of my house, which is in constant use, I should just say, with the bouquets with all the wonderful trails that we're asked to do and include in the bride's bouquet. Fortunately, I still have a few precious hostas in the garden. They're in pots actually, and this is a pretty little lemon and green one which I'm going to just add in as my final piece of plant material. I'd like to thank you all for joining me today and watching my demonstration. I've had a great time and I've enjoyed showing you some of my favourite autumnal designs.